It's another blessed day in the hood. And once again, our achievers, I was talking to someone earlier saying that, look, we all basically confront obstacles in life. And what I've come to believe is that what separates achievers from non-achievers are things like their perspective, their attitude, their reaction, their tenacity, where you just have a commitment that you will never let anything stop you from reaching your goals. And so tonight's guest, Mr. Ron Eibensteiner, is a perfect example of that. What I like about Ron is similar to myself. We come from, I think it's fair to say, humble beginnings. And, you know, I am a fan of this country. And the reason I am is because you can come from humble beginnings and rise according to your effort. And, you know, sometimes luck and unfortunate things do play a part in it. But once again, if your attitude is right and you react to things correctly, we can overcome all this and generally succeed. As a person with a technical background, we very seldom use anything, say anything. It's 100% guarantee. But I think we're in the high 90s if we understand that we are in control of our lives, and a lot of what happens depends on us. I will repeat, probably get tired of me hearing this, tired of hearing this from me. Anything I have not achieved in life, all I have to do is look in the mirror. And it's because of something I didn't do, a mistake I made, a choice I made. And so that's just my attitude about my achievements in life. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to LaceyJohnson.com. You can send messages. You can subscribe. You can donate. So LaceyJohnson.com. And before I go any further, I want to say happy birthday to my wife, Betty. My wife of 34 years. And today she celebrates her 29th birthday again. You do the math, you might come up with something negative. And I normally try to tell one quick story in the news. I guess a rapper today, Young Dolph, most of these guys I've never heard of until they hit the news, was murdered in Memphis today. And I was at my barbershop, as I do every Wednesday, and we started talking about the state of rap music and how with all the negative things in rap music, the gun violence, the drugs, the disrespect for women. And what we don't understand is why do we tolerate this? Why don't we as a people stop buying this type of music? And there might be some type of dysfunction that's going on here that lets us accept that and let us that influence the way we do it. I do remember the time where rap music was positive. Starting with Rapper's Delight, it's probably was some guy being unfaithful or something like that. But we had LL Cool J talking about Mama Say Knock You Out, not Mama Say Shoot You, talking about the girls around the way. Mace, Puff Daddy, Biggie came out, More Money, More Problems. Queen Latifah was talking about how we disrespect women with the choice of words. Of course, everyone know about Public Enemy, which was the first rap group, I think, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, their social consciousness. But now today, we've just taken it totally off the rail, and we need to rediscover ourselves and stay away from that. So that's all I have to say about the news today. I'm anxious to get Mr. Eibensteiner on so we can talk about some of his achievement in life and his background. So without further ado, hey, welcome to Bright Lights, Ron.
Good evening, Lacey. Nice to be here.
Well, glad to have you here. And I should say, and I try to be always honest with my audience. Me and Ron go back a while. Back in the early 2000s, I was working with Ron, and he was involved in the education choice movement. He was involved in outreach to the Black community, and we talked about that. And so Ron has always been a supporter of making things better in our community. I know that right now he's working with Kendall Qualls, and we'll talk about that. His organization called TakeCharge I understand they recently had Jason Riley, one of my favorite Black conservatives in town. Sorry I missed that. But once again, I was out of town for the memorial service for my sister. So we're going to talk about that. And I've always talked about. So anyway, Ron, let's just dive into it. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, where you were raised, and because what we're trying to really do is take that Ron and see him go through life and transition to the successful Ron you are today. And I know you've been in investment. I know you've been in biotech. I know you've done a lot of great things out there. Once again, there's nothing 100% and guaranteed in life. I know, like most of us investors and us entrepreneurs, we've had success and failures, but we just keep marching on through that. So basically, let's start off with your early childhood. Where were you born and raised, Ron?
Well, I was born in a little town south of Sauk Center, Minnesota, back in 1950, a long time ago. And I'm the youngest of 11 kids in a family. And I grew up on a farm. My father was a farmer, his father was a farmer, and his father was a farmer, and that's what they knew. And growing up on a farm, you learn to pitch in. And I had a lot of brothers, and thankfully they were older than me, so that I didn't have to do all the work on the farm. But the one thing that you learn very early on when you grow up on a farm is that work is the essential ingredient of life. And there was no time to sit around, watch TV. In fact, we never had a TV until I was a junior in high school. And quite honestly, we didn't have time for a TV. In the summertime, we were out in the fields working. It was about a 200-acre farm. And then in the wintertime, we would be going to school, but we'd have to get up at, I think most mornings we got up at 5:15 in the morning, and we had to milk the cows and feed the other smaller animals, the pigs, the chickens. And it was a variety of farming that we did, and we had to be on the school bus at 7:45 in the morning. And we were at school all day, came home, and then we had chores to do, milking the cows and feeding the pigs and the chickens, and all of those sorts of things. We'd get into the house at 8:30 in the evening, have something to eat, and then we'd study for about an hour, and then in bed, and then it would start all over again.
That's a
So
lot. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
I would say it was a very unexciting life. But the one thing that was really good was the fact that work was just preeminent part of our lives, and we learned to work. And I think that has stayed with me for the rest of my life. In fact, I enjoy work. I get a lot of pleasure from working and being active. If you did the calculation, I am 71 years old. But I don't plan on retiring because I really enjoy being out there, working, creating, working with people, strategizing as to how to, build a business or whatever endeavor you're in. And it makes it fun. I've always said that work gives life meaning.
Yeah, well, it's so much to impact there. Work, I agree. I tell everyone, if you hear anyone talking about solving some of these issues in these communities and they don't mention work, and one of the things that one of my pet peeves now is that there are people out there who want to pay people not to work, even if they don't work. And so I have an issue with that. I've been straight up about, if you're mentally and physically healthy, we expect for you to work. And so that's one great thing. And just being raised on the farm, getting up early. And I tell everybody, my wife, I tell her all the time, if I had to do it all over again, I think I'd raise my children in the country on a farm and not in the city. That's just me. And you mentioned the TV is just like us. Our television, first television, had a cord that you could take loose from the back. And my mom used to take it to work with her every day when she left because she didn't want us sitting around watching TV all day. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate the fact, once again, it's not like you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, just hard work and dedication and setting goals and things like that. So those are the type of things that we'd like to share with our audience today. But before we get there, I met your wife not too long ago. Tell us a little bit about your current family and how long you've been married and how many children and grandchildren that you may have. Tell us a little bit about that, Ryan.
Well, I got I got started late in life. I got married when I was 38 years old. And people have often asked me, why did it take so long for you to get married? And I always say that I didn't meet the right one. And then on age 38, I met the right person that would be a good life's partner. And so between the two of us, we have one child. She is 30 years old, lives in New York City, works for a big public affairs company, and enjoying living in New York City for the time being, that is. It's got some challenges. But my wife is originally from Edmonton, Alberta, which is in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And we met at a venture capital seminar back when I was about 35 years old. And she was kind of the MC of the venture capital seminar. And I was sitting in the audience and I thought, wow, that woman is really sharp. I got to get to know her, and the rest is history.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to get into too much details on that, but I'm glad you've been together for so long. And that's a good segue because I do know that you've, well, first of all, let's go back. Your major in college, and what was your major in college, by the way?
Well, when I was, I graduated when I just turned 17, and I graduated from Sauk Centre High School, and I wanted to go off to college, and I'm the only one in my family that went to college. And although they're all very financially successful, running their own businesses, and mainly in the construction trade industry, but I decided that I wanted to go to college, so I went to the University of St. Thomas, and my dad said that he would help me with my college education. And the day I left for school, he gave me $5, and he said, well, that'll do it. You're on your own now. And so I went to University of St. Thomas and then over to the University of Minnesota. I graduated there with a degree in political science. And I enjoyed taking all of these courses so much that it took me 5 years to graduate, because I wanted to take a lot of business courses and psychology courses. I took a lot of I took a few chemistry courses, and but my major, my undergraduate degree is in political science.
Okay. You mentioned your dad helping you to with your college education. They gave you $5. I often tell the story. My parents let us know from day one, we're gonna get you through high school. From there on, you're on your own, and we're gonna teach you everything you need to take care of yourself, take care of your family, take care of your children. And I was really thankful and blessed for that. When I left home, I said three things. First of all, I'm not gonna ever move back home. Secondly, I'm not going to ever write home for money, which I violated once in college. I think I might have borrowed $500 from my mom for something, which I can't explain because I always had jobs and things when I was in college. And then thirdly, I said that whenever I get some money, I'm going to buy my mom and dad something. So I bought a dining room set that to this day still sits in the dining room of our home, and I was just happy to get them stuff. So I didn't even get $5, Ron. You did very well.
Well, you're $5 ahead of me.
Now, I know you mentioned you majored in political science, but Ron, I know you as like I say, as an entrepreneur. I know that you've delved into a lot of technology, biotech, and things like that. I've been in some meetings with you, and you seem technically sharp. But before we go into there, when did you first decide? And when I hear political science, I'm thinking you had an idea to go into politics. But when did you first decide what career you wanted for yourself?
Well, I would say it was very early on. Even when I was in grade school, I remember thinking, what's the Dow Jones Industrial Average? I would hear that occasionally on the radio where they would say the Dow Jones Industrial Average increased, 3 points or 8 points or whatever. And I would ask my dad, what is the Dow Jones Industrial Average? And he said, it's something to do with the stock market, but don't concern yourself with it. That's only for rich people. And I said, well, then that's all the more reason I wanted to learn something about it. So I was always fascinated with the financial services industry, the stock market, and how companies are grown. And in high school, I would read books on various entrepreneurs, of the latter part of 18th century and 19th century, Henry Ford and, or 20th century, I should say, Henry Ford and, the Featherstone and Goodyear tires. And so business was always of interest to me long before I went to college. And the reason I graduated with a political science degree is I had enough credits for that. I had enough credits for business as well, but I chose political science for my degree. But I had an interest in political science, but I always meant to do something in the business world.
Okay, so I know you to be a man of many interests and talents and things like that. So you graduate. You're taking all these different courses, which I did also when I was in college. I wanted to take course in everything. You graduated with a political science degree, and then what do you do? What's the first job out of college that you ever hold?
Well, there was no doubt as to what I wanted to do with my first job out of college. My older brother, who never went to college, but he was very successful as a salesman, and he got a job as a salesman, and he did very well financially, as well as developing his career. So, and I remember him telling me one day, he said, if you know how to sell, if you can learn how to sell, the world is your oyster. And that really intrigued me. And so after college, when I graduated, I only applied at various companies in sales position because I really wanted to learn how to sell.
Okay. And if we gotta have people out there who are interested in being a salesman, what would you say are some of the fundamentals of just selling? Just give me 2 or 3, Ron. 1 or 2 fundamentals of selling, as far as you're concerned.
Well, first of all, you have to be willing and eager to learn how to sell. If you're not interested in learning that whole process and selling and persuading people that your product is superior to another product, it's not going to work. You really have to commit yourself to learning how to sell. And then once you do that, then it's just perseverance. And, there's the old saying that a born salesman. Well, I'm not so sure. I think there are certain characteristics that people have more of a tendency to be a good salesman with certain characteristics, but you can learn how to be a good salesman. You just have to apply yourself, get some training, read some books on salesmanship. And I really wanted to sell a product where I would have to persuade somebody that my product was superior. First of all, that they needed my product, and number 2, that my product was superior to another product that they could possibly get. So when I graduated from the University of Minnesota, my first job was selling typewriters and door to door in downtown Minneapolis. And in fact, one day I was selling typewriters to the local Hewlett Packard office, and they liked my salesmanship, and they offered me a job to selling mini computers, and that's how I got to work at Hewlett Packard. I think about a year after I started my typewriter business, and moved to California, Los Angeles, because they had an opening for a salesman in the Los Angeles area for Hewlett Packard, and that was the start of my selling career.
Wow, we kind of reveal our age when we start talking about typewriters, Ron.
Isn't that the truth?
That is amazing. Now, I know somewhere down the line, you eventually became involved in the investment community, and you got a job in the investment community. How long after you started or finished at Hewlett Packard did you move into the investment area?
Well, I worked for Hewlett Packard for 2 years, and
Hmm.
I had the West LA area that includes Century City, Westwood, all the way to Santa Monica. That was my territory. And I remember one day making a major presentation to, oh, and I also had Beverly Hills, downtown Beverly Hills as well. And I made a presentation to the investment firm of Morgan Stanley and on Hewlett Packard why they should buy a mini computer. And I was in there and I thought I gave a pretty good presentation. And the manager of Morgan Stanley thought I had done really a good job. And afterwards, after I had made the sale, he pulled me into his office and he said, "How would you like a job working for Morgan Stanley in institutional sales?" And I said, "Gee, I would love to because I have an interest in the stock market and how companies are funded and financed. I read a lot of books about it." And he said, "Well, I think you would do well in institutional sales and we'll train you and teach you everything else." And that's when I started my work at Morgan Stanley, and I worked for them. I moved up to San Francisco, worked in their West Coast corporate office for 7 years, and that's when the door of the financial services industry opened up for me.
I noticed you said that you read a lot of books on investment. I'm assuming some of them may have been for classes, but some of them you just did on your own. And there's some themes that's evolving here, Ron, as far as goal setting, hard work, thirst for knowledge. Uh, these books that you read on investment, were some of them just on your spare time? I mean, you're a young guy out there, and I'm assuming you're making good money, California, and sound like you're spending some of your time just reading books on investment. Is that correct?
Oh, oh, absolutely. I think I read more books after I graduated from the University of Minnesota than while I was there. It was not uncommon for me to read probably a dozen magazines during business magazines during the week and one or two books during the week and on business, on finance, and I loved it. I enjoyed it, and I spent a lot of my free time reading.
Well, I hear people who are involved heavily in the investment community to say it can be rather stressful. Did you have many stressful moments or a few stressful moments during your time at Morgan Stanley, right?
Well, if you like doing something and you really enjoy it, it never becomes stressful. Were there days where you were really working hard and you had a lot of things to do and there was not enough hours in a day to get it all done? Absolutely. But I really enjoyed it. And, I think I would have stayed with Morgan Stanley or one of the other investment banking firms, but I was so intent on starting my own business and I wanted to run my own business, start it, own it, build it myself, and not work for a major corporation. And if it wasn't for that desire, I would have stayed with Morgan Stanley for the next 20, 30 years.
Uh, so when you were thinking about owning your own business, there a particular business that you had in mind, or you were just looking for the right opportunity? How did you go about deciding that?
Well, I was in California in Silicon Valley in the late 70s and early 80s. That's
Hmm.
when all
Hmm.
the venture Apple computer got started. I mean, there was just a lot of activity. And I really wanted to work in the venture capital area. But at that time, you had to, work in one of these high-tech companies before you got a job in venture capital. And so that door wasn't available for me. And so the other area that I was very interested in it was real estate. real estate development. And my brother, who I referenced earlier, who was such a good salesman, he had started buying up some land in the northern part of the Twin Cities area, and he wanted to develop that land into single family homes and commercial buildings. And he asked me if I would have any interest in moving back to Minnesota and start a real estate investment company with him. And that was in 1981, which I did.
Wow. So I think, and I'm trying to be respectful of time. I think eventually, if I understand it, you moved into the biotech area and you've started up a few companies. You've had a few investments. Some of them have paid off big, and like any investments and any entrepreneurial type of venture, there's risk involved. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Tell us about moving from the real estate development into just other types of industries and corporations, and how did that
Well,
happen?
Well, when I was in real estate, we had a big single family development up by Cardiac Pacemakers, which is now Guidant in Arden Hills. And I got to know quite a few. We built a lot of the houses and sold lots to a lot of the executives there. And I got to know a couple of the executives. And one day, one of the executives approached me and said, he would like to resign from Guidant and start a medical device company. But he was a scientist and he didn't know anything about how to start a company or how to get it funded. And I said, well, with my background with Morgan Stanley, I knew exactly how to go about it. Now, whether we would be successful or not was was another question. But so we informed the company, and that first company was called Arden Medical Systems, which was a blood gas analyzer. And by that time, I had been in real estate in 4 years. And to be quite honest with you, I got kind of bored with real estate. It was not as exciting to me as venture capital or developing companies. And so we started Arden Medical, and 3 years later, we sold it to J&J because we have come up with a very innovative blood chemistry analyzer. And that was so much fun. So we decided to wait out our 2-year non-compete, and then we started another company. And in fact, over the next 3 years, beyond that, we started 3 companies in 3 years after our non-competes were over with: Diametrics Medical, Intag Corporation, and Intratherapeutics.
So I know from personal experience that starting up a company and making it successful can be fairly challenging. Did you find it? I'm assuming you found it also challenging. And I guess how is your track record as you look back on it as far as success of the different companies? Because I'm assuming you won some and you lost some, Ron.
Well, you're absolutely right. You do win some, you lose some. And fortunately for me, or unfortunately, and I'll tell you why I say that,
Mhm.
but my first 3 companies that I started with my cohorts, they were all very financially successful. And what happens when you have success too soon, too quickly, and too easily, you start getting full of yourself and you think, my God, this is easy, and all I have to do is start a company, and you begin to start feeling you're a little bit invincible. Well, as I said, the first 3 companies were very successful. We made money on it. Our investors were very pleased. And then the next 3 companies that I had started, I became kind of a serial entrepreneur with a number of other people, and they were not successful. And quite honestly, you learn more from your failures than from your successes. And one of the things you learn with your failures is a little humility. And you can be very smart. You can have a great product, a great idea. You can have the right team. You can have all of those things, but you need a little bit of luck too.
Mhm.
And that is something that I didn't appreciate when I had the successes. I thought it was due to me, and I didn't realize that the big fellow upstairs granted me a little bit of luck along the way, and that's why we were successful. So with the failures came eye-opening, and as I said earlier, I learned a lot through those failures, and thank God. The only regret I have is that I didn't learn them sooner.
Well, they tell me success is when preparation meets opportunities, and sound like you've had a lot of instances in your life. I've been listening to you're talking about people coming up to you, offering you jobs and wanting to work with you, and I think that's a great thing. And I've had similar experience, so I really appreciate that. And with respect for your time, there's two things I want to delve into. One is I know now that you are working on some broadband type of development company right there. Why don't you tell us about that and your ideas behind that, and how do you see that working out?
Well, about 7 years ago, 6 years ago, an engineer from Russia, he came to me, and I had worked with him in a previous company called Rakotech in the early 90s. And he was just an excellent engineer. And we sat down over, I think we had lunch, and he was telling me about the coming revolution, this is in 2000, about 2010. And he said the internet traffic is going to explode. Actually, it was a little bit later than that, 2012. The internet traffic is going to explode, and the current infrastructure just isn't adequate, to handle all the traffic. And fiber optic is a great solution, but you can't run fiber to every house and every business. The cost and the time is just too great. And he had a wireless solution for fiber, and or fiber-like.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so intrigued with him, and I asked him if he could, build this technology. And we went to work on it, and I think we formed the company in 2013 thereabouts. And I invested in the company, and I made the investment without a business plan or anything. It was just on a napkin, and because I was really convinced that he was absolutely right, that the internet traffic was to explode and we needed more broadband. And that was the genesis of QuickBit. And now fast forward 6 years later, we had several false starts. We didn't have the right product. We came very close to closing the company on a couple of times. But now I can honestly say that we have probably the best technology today. It's built on a 60 gigahertz technology for what we call wireless fiber. There is no such thing as wireless fiber, but it has, it's a wireless product that has all the capabilities of fiber connectivity. And we think, we call it our broadband 2.0 solution, and we think it's going to be a huge success.
Well, Ron, I know your commitment to the inner city communities and disadvantaged communities, and I think we've been talking about bringing broadband to some of these areas. I know that you've been looking at some investment opportunities in the inner city, and I just appreciate that. But I also know that you have even broader interests, and that you're working with Kendall Qualls, TakeCharge, I think it's the name of the organization. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that work and what TakeCharge is doing and why you're supporting that?
Well, throughout my business career and the various business endeavors that I've been involved in, I've always maintained an interest in politics, not so much politics, but policy. And, what are the best policies that we can implement so that all Americans can reach the American dream? What policies do we have to implement so that, that anyone, with my background can find a way in life and can be successful. And it's not just for some people, but for all people. And I honestly believe that wherever you are in life, you have a vested interest to make sure that you're not only successful, but that a lot of other people are also successful, because that benefits everybody and makes this country a better place. So I've always had a very big interest throughout the last 40 years in policy, and I'm chairman of a public policy think tank. And we try to come up with policies that will improve the lives of Minnesotans. It's a very state-based policy group. But the other thing is, you look at the minority community, and we just have to do a better job to make sure that opportunities are available for people in the minority community. And maybe some of that has been neglected over the last several decades, but it can't be neglected any longer. What we have to do is bring jobs and opportunity, education to minority communities. And so when Kendall Walz, he ran for Congress, as you know, and he was unfortunately he was defeated. And he and I talked about how he could make a real help in the minority community, and that's why we got involved or started TakeChargeMinnesota.org. And it's communicating a message that for all people, but particularly in the community, to get in the minority community, to get ahead, you can't rely on government. You can't rely on other people. You have to take charge of yourself, take charge of your family, take charge of your neighborhood and your community. And you have to be proactive about it. And if you go in with that attitude, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And that take charge, that statement is, I remember reading a book many years ago on Booker T. Washington, who I think is one of the greatest Americans. But no one knows much about Booker T. Washington, unfortunately. And every kid in school should know who Booker T. Washington was. But one of the things that he said, and he was the son of a slave and grew up on a plantation. He said he didn't look to anyone; he looked to himself. And he said, I needed to, very early on, I understood that I needed to take charge of myself, because no one was going to do it for me. And hence, that's why we named the organization Take Charge. And that's the message that we try and give to everybody. There are opportunities out there, but those opportunities are not going to mean anything unless you take charge of yourself and you go out and you go after and aggressively seek those opportunities.
Well, I want my audience to know all the time I've known you, and it's probably been over 15 years, that I've always admired the way you conducted yourself and your dedication, your commitment to helping communities and things like that. And maybe because we got similar type big family, country, farm type of background. And so out of respect for your time, I'm going to let you go here. But once again, I am a conservative in my outlook on life. I think a lot of the liberal policies has really damaged our community and gave us the wrong frame of mind. And when you got the wrong frame of mind, you're going to do some wrong thing, a lot of wrong things. So I really appreciate the fact that you are coming forth and working to help these communities, and the fact that you are conservative on the conservative side of the spectrum, that you are a Republican, and people tend to think that you're just a bunch of that don't care. But I've been knowing this man for 15 years, and he's been caring. He's been putting his money where his mouth is. So we really appreciate that. And I want you to know, let you know personally, I've really enjoyed associating with you, and just your attitude, your personality, everything about you. And so I really appreciate you being on tonight. And I'd like to get you on because you've done so many great things over your career and achieved so many great things. And these are the type of things that we want to share with our audience, because I'm up front too. And the people that I talk to, I always tell them, you can be anything you want to be. And I'm here to tell you can. And I've always felt that way. And I've always let them know, if I can do it, you can do it. And so thanks for all the positive messages, Ron, your personal stories of achievement and commitment and tenacity. That's what our audience needs to hear. And I challenge anyone out there who do not think they can be what they want to be. Just send me some message or whatever to email to LaceyJohnson.com, and I will show you how you can be that. So once again, Ron, we appreciate you taking our time tonight to share all your great stuff, and look forward to seeing you in person here shortly. And keep up all the great work. Okay.
Well, thank you, Lacey. Thank you for having me, and I really enjoyed this conversation with you. Thank you.
Just a little bit too short. We'll take care of that. Thanks, Ron. See you soon.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. That's Ron Eibensteiner, entrepreneur, investor, social conscious person, and like I say, put his money where his mouth is. And so look for, hopefully we can get down the road, we can get some broadband here in North Minneapolis working with Ron. And so just stay tuned for that. Once again, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Bright Lights. Go out to LaceyJohnson.com and show your support. And we will see you back here again in 1 week. Thanks, everybody.